I guess I could do that. But you know what isn't unlucky?
本製品は18歳未満の方はプレイすることができませ
This
ん。
game?
この作品
Yeah.
は本製品のすべては株式会社
I
ユ
don't
ナス
know.
の著作物です。
I accidentally
本製品の一部
tried using the hotkey to make my model go to the corner on the game.
天使創造リブート
I forgot to mention this, but I guess this is the perfect time to say it. Noah has really been growing on me. Right? Where did I put her in my ranking? Angle ranking. She's second. And it's not that she's changed to first, but she's definitely solidified second place. I would say. Alright, yeah, Fumika, Amane, Kaguya. I definitely feel like changing the ranking for her as well. Also, I just realized that my other output, my other video source doesn't have the text. So maybe it'd be a good idea to change that. How would I... Okay. Let me do something like this. If I match up the videos... And where would be a good thing to line it up to? Fumika's uniform would be perfect. Okay, that's good enough. No, that was a little thing, but I've somehow made it a habit to only change the ranking after I finish the route of said character. And, well, spoiler alerts, Kaguya is definitely going up. Alright, I very much like her route, even though I haven't really said anything about how much I like it. But it's weird, I don't know. I really like Fumika and Amane, and Kaguya is definitely getting 4th place. I know I'm trying to compare the I'm trying to compare what we've seen with Kaguya's route currently to what we've seen in Amane's route. You know, the whole thing. And I'm trying to think back to, well, let's say the important parts. Alright, I'm trying to think back to the quote-unquote important moments. And it's weird, right? Because with Amane, there was a very obvious conflict at hand, as with the her transmigrating and shit like that, right? And then they naturally progressed that with how Amane would transmigrate even though Riku isn't using his powers or isn't using anything related to Diablo, right? And that naturally led to them trying to figure out how to solve this problem throughout the entire route. And that led naturally into Amane confessing and stuff like that. And let me go through. Right. I mean, yeah, that was basically what her entire route was. But then with Kaguya, sure, there was that. Okay, you know, the route started off with like Kaguya trying to find a way to get closer to Riku, and that led into her using the secret training as an excuse to get closer to him. And you know, that evolved in us finding out more about Kaguya, in how she's the princess of a big kingdom in the other world, and how her brother doesn't like her, and how her brother wants to assassinate her. And then we see that with the assassin, and then that evolved into, you know, Riku finally being able to use his powers, and that led to, well, I wouldn't say that led to Kaguya falling for Riku, but it more so elevated her feelings for him, right? She already liked him, right? Obviously, you could see that through how she wanted to, how she bought the same phone as Riku, and how, let me just get rid of that, and how, you know, she's doing the quote unquote secret training. So, you know, and then of course after the confession, you know, after they closed the portal, after the confession, they went back to the secret training thing. And I guess you could say there was a bigger impact in him getting it up again, because it was a lot harder for him to. And, you know, I had a lot of questions as to why it was so much harder for Riku to get it up compared to in Amane's route, but and Noah's route, and every other girl's route. But you know, after they explained it, I got it. It made sense in the end, right? He's most definitely a lot more competent when it comes to controlling his mana. So due to that fact, he needed to learn how to control it slightly less to be able to get it up. But yeah, it's very how would I say it? There's a lot more stuff going on in Kaguya's route, and there's going to be a lot more stuff happening, and I do understand that I'm basically comparing apples to oranges with Amane, but I'm doing it because of how much closer they are in the rankings compared to Noah. And, you know, if I were to compare it to Noah's route, it would be a lot more comparable, because Noah's the main girl, right? You know, you learn why she's an angel. You learn what her connection is to Diablo. You teach her to become more like a human, right? Not like a human. I don't know how to explain it. But, right. This was a badass scene. but I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't help that it's been a hot minute since we've played through Noah's route, because she was the first round of the game. And, you know, with Ori and Fumika, the Ori's was very fucking bad. Fumika's was a lot better. And if I were to compare Kaguya's route to Noah's route, I still like Noah's better. And, you know, I think it's because we learned so much about Diablo. Right? We learned about his motives. We learned about how he died. We learned about who killed him. We learned about the people who tried, the people who made his killer. Right? And we were able to give Noah the revenge he was, well, I wouldn't say hoping for, but, you know, definitely deserved. And you don't really get any of that in Amani's route, and you get some of that in Kaguya's, right? Kaguya, in Kaguya's route, she's aware that Diablo probably isn't as bad as people say. And that's kind of the furthest it goes. Because here's the thing, right? The most important, the most interesting thing about Riku is the fact that he's the inherited, he inherited Diablo. He's, how to say, he's the reincarnation of him, I guess. And, you know, I think I've been very consistent in how I've been more consistent in it recently. In how, obviously, I don't really like self-inserts, and that's kind of ironic. That's kind of ironic of me to say, considering I play fucking visual novels, and a lot of visual novels have self-insert characters. But there's a reason why I like routes where you get to know more about the main character, right? And it's kind of what I got. That's kind of what I got in Noah's route. Even though, to be honest, you do get more. You do get to know more about Riku in Amane's route, but you know, it's not really as interesting as Diablo stuff. Right? It's like, sure, Riku cared about his sister very much, even though he didn't really, you know, he didn't really act like he did, you know, because he's a kid and blah blah blah. And then, you know, we get to learn more about Amani and her route too, and that's all good and all, but how would I say it? Yeah, it is definitely better to compare Kaguya's route to Noah's, because, well, they kind of deal with the same thing, which is the whole transmigrating thing, specifically with Riku, and the whole, you know, who Diablo really was. And then, you know, there's those clavy parts, and the fact that the fact Clavy works with Kaguya in Noah's route kind of, you know, it kind of contradicts Clavy's role in Kaguya's route. Because in Kaguya's route, we find out that that Klavi was hired by her brother, but that wouldn't really work in Noah's route because I don't think her brother would allow Klavi to be hired by Kaguya. Right? So, you know, that's kind of the most I can say about it. But either way, right, I guess there's that other thing I kind of forgot to mention. Last VOD was fucked. The last VOD fucked was fucked hard by Twitch in how for some reason the playback, right, the preview, I guess, was perfectly fine, right? You were able to see the entire video in the preview, but the entire 4-hour stream was just the outro, and it was unironically just the outro. So I don't know what the fuck happened, but thankfully I was recording, and I don't know why I record both a version where, you know, it's just the Twitch stream and a version without it, because it would usually only make sense for me to only record a version of it not having my model or any Twitch stuff, right? And it's just being the raw game with the audio from my mic and the game and stuff like that, right? But it really came in handy when the VOD fucked up so badly that it was literally unwatchable. I guess not literally, but you know, you couldn't watch the whole 4 hours. That's for sure. But well, I guess I'm gonna be doubling down on that from now on. And the only reason I'm bringing this up now is because guess what? All of that stuff I was talking about before, well, that's not going to be in the VOD if Twitch fucks up the VOD again, because I didn't record any of it. So, yeah. I guess I should mention this too. There's a very funny thing that happens when I decide to record, you know, I decide to record for a visual novel. And sometimes the clip, and it's only the first one that I record for the day, sometimes that gets corrupted. And I don't mean the whole thing, right? Only like a small part of it. And so, you know, a little behind the scenes, even though this whole thing, even though everything I've talked about is behind the scenes, except for my thoughts on Kaguya's route, Noah's route, and Amani's route, but that's beside the point. I've done this little thing where I record a small clip, right, at before actually recording for the video, and it's been working. Alright, it's been working out, and I haven't gotten any corrupted second clips, I guess. Even though there was that one time with there was that one time in Kakenuke where the entire thing, right, the entire video got corrupted except for the audio. Well, yeah, I said the entire video, right? But, yeah. Either way, and I'm only really gonna do this intro. Yeah. I'm kind of only doing this sort of intro because, you know, what if Twitch fucks up again? So, yeah, either way, let's jump right into it. Unfortunately, I forgot to record anything that I was talking about before.
スネ王国第二王女であらせられるカクアシトリア様。 ただいまお戻り遊ばしました。
But, you know, I'm sure it's fine. But either way, let's actually get back into it. I found myself in this foreign world. Laurier's dignified voice bellows through Snoway's royal castle.
皆、出迎え大義である。
Okay, hang on a minute. You're referred to as Kaguya Storia, but for some reason you're still wearing your, I guess, human disguise. Is this like a... I didn't realize this was a normal thing in her world too. Princess Kaguya, that is, Kaguya, follows Aurea into the audience room, stepping out in front of the gathered crowd of ministers and nobles.
戻ったわ。
But without your ears.
これはかくあ姫。
I have returned without my fox ears.
いずこへ行かれたのかと案じておりましたが。
All the dignitaries bowed to Kaguya's radiant grace. Moments later came the sound of hurried footsteps. The crowd parts to the sides. And through them steps a young man. He's clearly very important, both from the way he dresses and from all the soldiers accompanying him. All right, let's. I hope we actually get to see him.
無事であったか、かくあ。
Hey, look, he's got the fox ears. So why doesn't Kaguya have them? if he, never mind. The young noble acts with grace and dignity, clearly concerned, or at least appearing to be. Yeah, we know the truth. I can tell at first glance that he's related to Kaguya. Only this man is a far cry from his. Only this man is a far cry from her perfection. Okay, that. I mean, I know you're dating her, but that's a bit of a glaze. This is her older brother, the Crown Prince.
お久しぶりです。兄様。
It's funny that now that she's in her world, right, Snowy, I still don't know if I have to pronounce the W at the end with like a Snowy, right? But now that she's back in her own world, she stands out a lot more because she doesn't have her fox ears.
お久しぶりではない。急に姿を消したので何事かと心配していたのだぞ。我が妹よ。
The Crown Prince booms, clutching his chest in an overly theatrical manner. It would seem he plans on feigning ignorance for now. Kaguya smiles sweetly and gracefully bows.
それは
Graciously,
申し
fucking
訳ありま
Christ.
せん。異世界でいろいろと調査をしていましたの。
I'm saying words that are similar to what is on the screen, but I'm not saying the actual right words.
ほう、調査とな。
ええ。魔王があっちに転生したのは、もはやここに居並ぶ全員が承知のこと。
Yeah, that's me.
この事態にどう対処すべきか。我が国にとって、それが最も重要な課題なのも。
うん、確かにその通り。
であらば、危険は承知の上で世界を渡り、まず調査に当たるべきと考えた結果です。
Even after all this thinking, I still don't know what her plan is. Right? I've thought of. I'm thinking between like two things. Right? As to why Kaguya needed to confirm that Riku was able to voluntarily switch between himself and Diablo. And it's like, okay, the first thing is like intimidation, and then the second thing is like proving that the reincarnation of Diablo is able to control his mana to a good enough extent that the people of Snaeway don't have to fear for Diablo's return, right? That's a lot more complicated than just intimidation, but, you know.
確かにお前は優秀な使い手だが、第二王女ともあろう者が危険を冒す必要はなかっただろ
う。He is a lot louder than every other character. He is his normal speaking voice. Well, I guess his theatrical speaking voice is matching my levels. Unfortunately, because I've increased the volume of my mic through the filters, he's matching my older volume.
しかも我らの誰にも告げることなく、それは何か後ろぐらい。
機を逃しては魔王の転生体の居場所がつかめなくなる恐れがありましたから、事後報告になってしまいましたことはこの通りお詫びいたします。
そうか。ならば許そう。殊勝な心がけ、兄王子として誇らしいぞ。
私こそ寛大な兄様がいらっしゃることは何よりも誇らしい限りです。
そうか。
It looked like the Crown Prince was about to break character, but Kaguya skillfully led the conversation back to him laughing again. He's exactly how they said he would be, acting the master strategist, and despite being simple and coarse at his core, he definitely feels like the kind of character who tries to act as logical as possible, but isn't really in control of his emotions. Right? That's no reason to let our guard down. However, he's not the only one we're up against. Right as I have that thought, one of the prince's followers comes up and whispers in his ear. You're finally gonna pay attention to Mr. Humegalol in the next to Kaguya or whatever. Upon which the prince's eyes narrow coldly.
しかし、カクアよ。皆を代表して一つ聞きたい。
はい。何でしょうか、兄様。
魔王は莫大なマナ資源でもあるのはこれまた皆が知るところ。他者に先んじて世界を渡り魔王に接触を図ったのはカクア。
I mean, what if she did? This isn't good.
魔王のマナを手中にし、お前が。
それ以上に。
Kaguya's sharp, dignified tone cuts the prince off mid-sentence. She stares directly into his eyes, showing to the whole room that what she says is to be trusted. Is it?
我が国シュトリア朝スネーウ国は魔王の行いを一切許容せず、再び存在することも決して認めない。それが揺るぎない国是ですよね、兄様。
その通りだ。私のみならず大陸中がそう認識している。
He admitted it. Not that he had a choice in front of all these nobles and ministers. Kaguya sighs uncomfortably and forces a smile. The Crown Prince's brow furrows in distrust.
こちら
へ。
へ。
He's just fucking. Okay. He's Riku's fucking hiding or whatever. Arya ushers me away, making sure nobody notices us. I tiptoe over to the position we agreed upon beforehand. And right then,
ならば兄様!
Kaguya cries out, her voice sharp, and her finger pointed directly at her brother.
なぜ兄様は異世界に配下を送り、魔王の身柄を確保しているのですか?
Could you really classify Klavi as one of his men, though?
何?
The Crown Prince stumbles backwards, right toward where she's trusting I'll be. That's the cue. Got it. I throw off the fox mask I've been wearing and unleash Diablo's mana. Oh, he's been wearing a fucking fox mask. That's why no one paid attention to him. Because he looked like a fox character. He looked like a fox kimono Mimi. Compared to Kaguya, who doesn't have her ears out. Whoa! That was fucking loud. That was a very loud sound. Voice effect? Voice pack? Never mind. Everyone, Crown Prince included, staggers backwards, their eyes open wide in fear and shock. Understandable, really, for I have appeared before them as... Yes, I have transmigrated into the symbol of terror itself. This is comical. You didn't need to confirm my point. Raw.
殺される兵どもよ私を守れ
I unleash a blood-curdling cry. I'm sure you did, sending panic through the masses, who all scrambled and tried to escape. Terrified soldiers, forced to follow their orders, walked toward me, their legs trembling. A swing of my mana-laden arm is all it takes to send them flying. Screams once more fill the audience chamber. There's but a single person remaining calm.
こちらの世界に帰還し、マナを得て、ついには復活してしまったのね。魔王
Oh, okay. So that's what her plan was. She stands undaunted between Diablo and the crowd protecting them. And then...
これが兄様の狙いだったのならば。
私は
シュトリア家の者として、正しくその責務を果たすのみ
Am I really gonna have to put on airs if Diablo quote-unquote Diablo talks?
我が兄の、トガの分も
She declares before pulling what looks like a dagger without a blade from her breast. Of course she had to pull it out of her cleavage. There's no pockets on her outfit. I was gonna say kimono, but you know, there's a lot less clothing than a fucking kimono. A shrine maiden outfit, I guess. And charging straight toward me.
魔王よ覚悟
A blade of burning flames bursts from her hand in an instant.
姫様いけません
Kaguya姫
Aurie's scream serves to rouse the crowd, who all shriek as they see Kaguya charging toward me in what they must assume to be vain. Yet she doesn't stop.
Yeah!
She brandishes her burning blade, clutching against me, and every attack I throw at her gradually pushes me back. Despite the panic in the chamber, everyone is staring at us in wonder. I can guess what they're thinking. They can't believe that their princess Kaguya is an even match for Diablo. Yeah, you're right. Maybe you should, you know, maybe you should make it less obvious by making it... He says even match, but he's being pushed back by her attacks. He literally just said he was being pushed back by her attacks. Maybe you should, you know, push her back too. Or was that not in the script? Likely, they're clinging to the hope that she's more than a match for me. However, I allow my mana to exude ominously once again, pulling the shroud of fear down over the room.
何をしている兵どもよ隊列を組み槍ぶつまで当たれ今すぐに魔王を討ち取り我が身の潔白を証明せよ
I imagine the only reason the prince is still ordering his soldiers around instead of fleeing, with his tail between his legs, quite literally. Actually, I don't know if they have tails. Never mind. Is because he's that desperate to claim the throne for himself. But when I once more... Bowl? Yeah, okay. It's been a while since I've seen that word. once more ball right through his soldiers, he finally breaks.
私はこんなところで死ぬわけにはいかぬのだ。
Yeah, you need to admit your sins, Prince Storia.
誰ぞ次期国王の身を守るために魔王に立ち向かえる勇者はおらんのか。
He rants and raves, the fear having overcome him. He's no different than the rest of the masses. Princess Kaguya, however, is not like him.
兄様に手出しはさせないわ。
I mean, okay, I understand, right? But if this whole okay, here's the thing, right? Kaguya's plan is meant to play out by how do I say this? Kaguya's plan is how do I say this? The reason Kaguya is doing this, right, is twofold. One is to make her brother look guilty. I don't know how that one would pan out. And then the second one is to solidify her position as the crown princess. As the rightful heir to the throne, I guess. But, you know, I understand how it would lead to that second thing, but I don't know where this is going in terms of making her brother admit that that he tried to steal Diablo's mana, or that he tried to send an assassin to Kaguya or something. Maybe I'm not looking not looking deeply enough into this plan. But at least I don't have to act like Diablo. She throws herself in front of my attacks, blocking them one by one. If anyone here embodies the bravery of a hero, it's her. And she proves it to all present by continuing to hold me at bay as she barks out an order.
堀江、今件の重要な容疑者よ。兄様の身柄を確保して。
Yeah, but like how will you be able to prove this?
お任せください。
Orie nimbly slipped behind the crown prince and twists his arm around to hold him in place.
兄様、私が魔王を討伐した後にたっぷり話を聞かせてもらうわ。
I mean, okay, let me think about this. The reason Kaguya made Riku transmigrate into Diablo is so that people think that Diablo has been reincarnated because of her brother? Is that what they're doing? I don't know.
No!
Anger fills his face. He must realize that he's in big trouble now.
この場を切り抜ければ、あとはどうにでもなるということか。
His arm is still bound by Orie. The prince looks to the ceiling and cries.
ならば、クラビ、今こそ我が恩に報いてみせよ。
Okay, well, I guess this will make him look more guilty. He's damned himself by resorting to the ace up his sleeve.
へいへい。恩着せがましい王子様だな。都合よく使いてえだけだろ。
Well, apparently in Noah's route, this wasn't a problem. The man from before, Clavi, saunters forward, holding what looks to be the same kind of syringe.
だが、仕事は仕事だ。今度こそそのマナを奪わせてもらうぜ。蘇った魔王様よ。
下がれ。傭兵などにかなう相手じゃないわ。
お姫さんだったとは驚いたが、純粋な魔法戦では俺にかなわなかった。 あんたに言われたくねえな。
Unfortunately, unfortunately he said magical combat. So instead of martial arts, so that means he can't actually he won't be able to do anything. Last time the man manipulated Fumika into stabbing me. Yeah, we should do that again. What? But this time he kicks off the ground and launches himself right at me. He uses magic to enhance his own physical abilities while adopting a posture to defend himself against my attacks. Just as we'd predicted. Oh, fuck. Now, subside. I thrust my hand forward and fire my magic. Both Kaguya and Kaguya instinctively adopt defensive positions and freeze in their tracks.
マナが封じ込まれたのか。
Alright, so what is phase 2 of Kaguya's plan now that she can't use mana? The magic aura he had around himself immediately disperses. He's back to relying on his regular old strength, which means his plans are in ruins. But if anything, it's the terror he feels at no longer being able to use magic that roots him to the spot.
これが本物の魔王の恐怖の象徴の力。化け物か。
Yeah, it is pretty weird, isn't it? Everyone in the room is a resident of this world. Everyone in this room is a resident of this world familiar with mana, albeit to varying degrees. Which means they immediately catch on to how horrifying my power is. The ability to seal all mana. Several of them are slumped to the floor, having given up all hopes of escape. It's no longer fear that's dominating this chamber, but despair. And yet, despite that...
スネウ国の第二王女がこれ式で膝を屈するものか。
Okay, well, hang on a minute. You can't use the CG again. She can't use mana anymore. you have to change the CG so there's no fire anymore. It's just a bladeless. It's just the handle of a bladeless knife. Sure. Kaguya alone displays the courage to carry on. She positions herself defiantly in front of me as she draws a feather from her breast. Of course. She... God damn it.
誉れあるシュトリアの娘に天の御使いの加護ぞあれ。
Oh! Bro. You know, I was going to say... This ending, I guess you could say quote-unquote ending, will determine whether or not this will be better than Noah's route. You know, if I were to compare Kaguya and Noah's route, they'd be sort of even. And, you know, if I were to... You know, because I haven't played through, I haven't finished Kaguya's route yet. I don't know what the ending will be, right? The final conflict, right? So I was going to say this will determine whether or not Kaguya's route will be first or second. And like, this is goofy as all fuck. And I can't say I can't in good faith say that Kaguya's route is better. I mean, okay, subjectively speaking, maybe, right? You know, if this is so comedic, but what's funny is that the resolution to the conflict in both Noah's and Kaguya's route is kind of the same, right? In both routes, you have set up this plan to essentially fool everyone around you, Like, well, to be more specific, in Noah's route, you fake Noah turning into a fallen angel to go after the people trying to bring her back, right? And then scaring them half to death before until they escape back into their portals. And then in Kaguya's route, you have them staging this whole fight between Diablo and Kaguya to essentially catch to force her brother into admitting his guilt and then solidifying her place on the throne as the rightful heir. Flip those around. Never mind. But yeah, the way they're going about this is like, I can't really say that they're being too serious here to the point where it's goofy. I guess I could say that they're being too theatrical, right? It's like, bro, if these guys weren't so scared, you could not convince me to think Kaguya and Riku aren't playing a role, right? How would I say this? They're kind of relying on the fact that these guys are too scared to realize that this is an act, right? I don't know. An angel appears, her glistening wings spread to protect Kaguya. Oh, okay. Of course the feather was Noah.
天は汝を守り、祝福せん。
The angel offers both of her hands to Kaguya and begins to glow, as if she herself is being blessed. And in those hands is a brilliantly burning blade of flames. Ah, now you can put the CG back.
Kaguya-hime!
Those in attendance must believe they're witnessing a miracle. And because one person withstood the despair to stand against fear, and they alone have been offered divine protection. Because, okay, here's the main problem, right? Is this really how Kaguya would respond if Diablo was actually trying to attack them? And also, you know, if Kaguya wasn't aware that Diablo had the mana sealing powers, right? Because if I was thinking about this logically, if I was there in person and have seen Kaguya one way as one way, and she suddenly returns from wherever the fuck she came from, and now she's acting like this. Like, I wouldn't you be a little suspicious? I mean, I guess I'm saying I am basically saying what I did before, where they're relying on the fact that these guys are too scared, too filled with despair, and I guess now too in awe to question how Kaguya's acting now. But I guess I haven't really seen how she acts when she's trying to act like the princess or something. Which is exactly what we were aiming for. That was my idea, to have Kaguya use Noah's feather at this point. Obviously, we discussed it all with Noah beforehand, and as a result, she put on the best display we could have asked for. Noah used her blessing, and I refined my mana seal so that the effects of it wouldn't befall Kaguya. All of the experience I've built up has led to me having quite the fine touch when it comes to controlling my mana. All of the conditions are set, and now you just have to finish up, Kaguya. I mean, okay, to be fair, at least in this route, there are a lot more players on the stage. There are a lot more actors on the stage, right? You know, Diablo has to play his role correctly. Kaguya has to play her role correctly. Noah has to play a slight role, but still has to play it correctly, and so does Aurier. But when it came to Noah's route, it was essentially only... Well, okay, I can't really in good faith say it was only Noah, right? Everyone played a role, but not as much, right? It was basically like, okay, you know, at the start of the conflict in Noah's route, that all of the characters were basically trying to set up this stage, right, to trick the people who came out of the portal, who tricked the scientists to let their guard down before they went to Noah, right? And then after that, it was basically all her. So, yeah. Maybe in Diablo's guise, but Kaguya can still work out what look I'm giving her. She nods in a way that only I will see.
あなたの奥の手は、天の御使いの加護を受けた私には通じないわ。皆、とくとご老示よ。今こそこのカクアシトリアが、忌むべき魔王を打ち果たす。
Kaguya proclaims as she hoists her burning blade toward me, with a dauntless smile of assured victory on her face. Everyone watches and waits with bated breath for their hero to take action. Even I find myself on the verge of being captivated. Yeah, she's so hot, literally. She is the savior, her burning blade a brilliant light of hope amid the darkness of fear dominating the chamber.
Yeah!
She kicks off the floor, shooting toward me like an arrow. This story is going to be passed down as an epic tale for generations to come. Shut the fuck up. She swings her burning blade.
Mao!
There's a flash.
Messeo!
An infinite number of instantly burst fireballs slam into me. Kaboom. Flames rage around me, the blast of the explosion nearly knocking everyone off their feet. And when the dust settles... Princess Kaguya stands there alone. Oh no, where's the body? It was burnt to ashes. Everyone watches wide-eyed, breaths held until the realization begins to sink in.
シュトリアの者としての務めを果たしたわ。皆！
おお、カクア姫！魔王討伐の英雄だ！天にすら祝福された我らがカクア姫の偉業をたたえよう！
Oh, you didn't hear that. Cheers and applause ring out through the chamber. Kaguya smiles and raises a hand. She looks every part the hero that just defeated the great demon king. That's my Kaguya.
こちらです。谷風さん、ノアさん。ありがとう。僕らが見えていないのに、すごいね、オリエは。ほぼ、打ち合わせ通りに行きましたから。
Yeah. Almost to an unrealistic extent. You're telling me that went perfect. I hope that something goes wrong, right? I've gone back to normal and put the fox mask back on to hide my presence, and Noah's made herself invisible to normal people. And we both watched the proceedings from a distance.
ええ、見事なお芝居、お疲れ様でした。では私は一旦。
I think it goes without saying, but yes, All of that was an act. Really, I couldn't tell. Kaguya's plan was to show herself defeating the resurrected Diablo in front of all the nation's leaders. That would turn the tables on her brother and leave him at a disadvantage. Obviously, that final attack of hers didn't actually kill me. That explosion of flames only really served to distract everyone and prevent them from seeing what was truly happening. I used the opportunity to revert to my normal form and suppress Diablo's mana to an imperceivable level and put the fox mask back on. Which meant that by the time the flames settled, it looked to everyone as if Diablo had been obliterated. As Aurier said, everything more or less went the way we wanted it to. But we're not out of the woods yet. The rest comes down to Kaguya. I know she can do it. I watch on hopefully as she steps in front of her brother. He's currently unrestrained as a result of Aurier having helped us get away.
兄様。
Unfortunately, the hero's sharp gaze pins him to the spot. Kaguya's flaming knife has been extinguished, and now she now thrusts the handle before him. she now thrusts the handle back into her cleavage.
これは、あっちにいた私に差し向けられた資格が手にしていたものです。
That was the first true statement. Yep. It's the same weapon the assassin used to make his frostblade. Using the very weapon that was confiscated from the prince's subordinate was all part of Kaguya's plan.
カクア姫に資格が。
ええ。私の調べによると、これは。
Yeah, so before anyone questions what the fuck just happened, she needs to change the subject to, an assassin was sent to kill Kaguya, and the assassin was hired by her brother.
南辺境伯領に少数残っている呪具商の手による持ち手のマナを刃となすナイフ。
それがどうかしたのか。
兄様はご存知のはず。
それはどういうことですかな、カクア姫。
私はあっちにいる間、二人の資格を退けたわ。一人目は魔王の転生体のマナを狙った。そこのクラビーという傭兵。
この者は先ほどの振る舞いからして王子の配下では。
違う！私が傭兵など。
私が順を追って話しているところです。あなたたちもまずは黙って聞いていてもらえる？
かしこまりました。失礼を。
Would you mind shutting the fuck up?
ありがとう。クラビーは現地の方々の協力もあって無事に撃退できたわ。もちろんそのままにしてはおけないからこっちに送り返して私の配下に身柄を確保させたのだけど、傭兵ギルド長の働きかけで釈放せざるを得なくなった。おかしな話だわ。一介の傭兵のためになぜギルド長が自ら動くのか。そもそもあっちで拘束されたクラビーの居場所をどうやってギルド長が掴んだのか。決まっているわよね。クラビーが私に身柄を抑えられたままでは都合の悪い者がいた。その者はほぼ間違いなくクラビーの雇い主であり高い身分を持つ人間。
私は知らぬぞ。
何も言っていないわ、兄様。二人目はさっきも言ったように私の命を狙った資格。手にしていたのはこの通り。南辺境伯領のごく一部でしか作られていない呪具。南辺境伯といえば、確か兄様とは実婚の仲だったわよね。
私は特定の貴族を目にかけひいきするようなものではない。
南辺境伯と対立されている 西辺境博の前でもそうおっしゃるんですか？まあ、それはさておき。私が異世界で遭遇した2つの襲撃事件の背後に、同一人物が存在するのはまず間違いない。この私を除いて、短期間に2人もあっちに渡せる術者は限られている。そんな術者を確保できる人間となったら、なおさら。
貴様、何が言いたい？
申し上げてもいい、ということね、兄様。では遠慮なく、魔王のマナ強奪未遂と、私の暗殺未遂。そのどちらにも、明らかに兄様が関与していると。
それは誠ですか？いや、今のお話を伺う限り、その可能性は極めて高いと考えざるを得ん。
何を言うか貴様！覚悟！
This is it. We have to provide definitive evidence that the Crown Prince is behind all of this. Everything that Kaguya just explained is circumstantial. It wouldn't be admissible on its own in court. I'm glad they pointed that out. Which is why we need to convince all those present that we're correct here and now.
全て憶測ではないか！状況証拠すらない！これは私に対する誹謗中傷である！
He may be simple and crude, but he's managed to save himself at the 11th hour. That's why he's the favorite to succeed the throne, even if he is utter trash. Is he, though? We really didn't want anyone to bring this up. How will you play this now, Kaguya?
だったら、俺が証言しよう。俺の雇い主は、この王子様だ。
Reinforcements have shown up out of the blue.
なんだと？悪いが、あんたはどうやらもう目がないぜ。だったら魔王討伐の英雄に貸しを作った方がいい。そう思うだろ？あんたも。
I mean, he is playing it smart, but here's the thing, right? And I didn't want to bring it up. Well, there were multiple moments where I could have brought this up, but I can't really not bring it up. But here's the thing, right? Clavy should know that Kaguya knows the person who was the reincarnation of Diablo, right? The person who inherited, quote unquote, Diablo's powers and is able to transmigrate into him, right? So, wouldn't how do I say this? Clavy is switching sides to Kaguya. Is switching to Kaguya's side, right? But wouldn't Clavy... It's hard to explain. But, you know, if you think about it, Clavy is essentially the only person who isn't on Kaguya's side who knows that she has a connection to Diablo and in turn his reincarnation, right? And he should and Clavy should also know that that connection isn't one of hostility, I guess. Right? You know, I think Clavy should be aware that Riku and Kaguya are fairly close. And Clavy also knows that Riku is Diablo's reincarnation. So, why would he switch sides? Right? Of all people, Clavi should be the most aware that the fight between Diablo and Kaguya was a farce. Right? Am I giving him too much credit?
同感ね。賢明な判断だわ。借りておきます。
Or, was Clavi paid off by Kaguya to not spill the information, not spill his secrets?
あんた、いや、かくあ姫もな。正直、姫のことは二度と敵に回したくないのもある。
徹底的に打ちのめしてあげたのが、ここで聞いたみたいね。
I mean, like, obviously Clavi doesn't know the full extent of their relation of Riku and Kaguya's relationship, and he was definitely not aware of the fact that he was able to that Riku was able to suppress mana, right? But I'm sure he's smart enough to put the pieces together.
うるせえな。とにかくだ。俺の雇い主も。俺の釈放を働きかけたのも、そこの王子様で間違いはない。これでかくあ姫の推察の正しさが一つ証明された。ということはだ。本当に、実の妹君に資格を差し向けられたのですか？
I mean, okay, I understand Clavi admitting that he worked, that her brother hired him. Proves the first thing, but how does it prove the second thing?
違う！断じて私では！
Because, like, the assassin isn't here as well.
そもそも何故そのような愚行に！
兄様は魔王のマナを手に入れようとした。それを阻んだ私を排除しようとした。
I mean, okay, you can infer that, but where's your proof?
けれど、先ほどの通り、最終的には私の目を盗んで、魔王の身柄を押さえ、こっちに連れてきた。
だから、それは濡れ衣！
私が倒した。魔王は、あえなく復活してしまったけれど、本来の目当ては、その膨大なマナだったはず。以上のことから考えれば、兄様は、第二の魔王として君臨するつもりだったということ。
違う！私にそんな野望など！
I am no man of ambition. Says the guy who tries...
バックログ画面だ。
Says the guy who arrested his own dad because he wants to be the fucking king. Kaguya concludes her argument and everyone turns to look at the prince in both shock and agreement. The prince desperately tries to plead his innocence. However,
野望などなかった人が、こんなことをするかしら。
何？
the door swung open.
ご一同、控えられよ！我らが国王陛下がおなり遊ばされました！
Oh, speaking of the king...
なんだと！
Behind Aurier comes an older man, propped up by attendants and ladies in waiting. His dark hair is streaked with grey. It's the frail king himself. Atop his head rests his crown, the proof of his royal authority.
私の兵士たちは！
私は魔王討伐の英雄、カクア姫の子飼いです。大変申し訳ありませんが、蹴散らさせていただきました。
父上をお守りする大事な兵を！父上、お体に触ります。何もおいでになることは。
黙れ。確かに我が身は病魔に侵されている。だが、兵をもって閉じ込めることを守るとは言わぬ。かくがよ、世も証言しよう。 世はそなたの兄によって幽閉状態にあったと。
おいたわしいことでした。
Why are you looking at him like that whilst you how awful. You sound sarcastic with that face.
すべて。兄様、あなたの一連の陰謀は、私がことごとく防ぎ、暴いたわ。
I mean, okay, here's the thing, right? Yes. Finding out that Kaguya's brother imprisoned the king would relinquish his right to the throne. But the whole point of this confrontation was to prove that Kaguya's brother also tried to kill her by sending an assassin to kill her. But she hasn't proved that point. She's proved the other points, right? And that's all well and good. But you can't really link it back to the assassin. Right, like, I understand she's achieved her goal, right? You know, Prince Doria will never become the king because the king will testify against him and how he was imprisoned. But if this was, if you could have really done, how do I say this? The biggest thing, right, that Kaguya was worried about was trying to find a way to prove that her brother sent an assassin to kill her. And then also Clavy, but Clavy was here, so he was able to testify against his boss. But I understand that Clavy switching sides to Kaguya's side wasn't in the plan, but wouldn't freeing the king be enough? Right? Okay, you know, Clavy is pretty shrewd, I guess. He isn't really loyal to anyone, right? He follows the money. So wouldn't revealing the king and the king testifying against her brother be enough for Clavy to switch sides as well? Right? The prince collapses to his knees. I don't know. And that's all the proof we need.
王城警備兵、第一王子を速やかに捕獲せよ。左門会、いや、弾劾の準備にかかれ。第一王子のみならず、関係者もすべて洗い出すのだ。その通りだ。この国から、ましてや現王家から、第二の魔王を出すことは決して許されん。
The two leading authorities bark their orders. They're going to arrest the prince and charge him for his crimes.
捕獲はお手伝いします。せい！
That's a low blow. Horia nimbly darts over to the prince and hurls him to the floor. He was already about to be arrested. You didn't need to kick him in the balls, figuratively. If only she did it literally. I mean, with the prince locked in her hold, she then signals to the surrounding soldiers with her eyes. They immediately spring into action and tie him up with rope. Everyone then kneels before the princess, the hero who defeated Diablo and unveiled her brother's schemes.
どうか我らの新たなる女王に。
ありがとう。皆の気持ち、しかと受け取りました。
I mean, I guess if I don't have a choice, I may as well become the queen.
ということですが、お父様。
そなたは王位継承に興味はないと公言していたはずだな。
過去の話です。今は私だけが負うことのできる責務と感じています。 私にお任せください。父王。
そうか。余はここに宣言する。余は可及的速やかに退位し、王冠と玉座を第二王女たる各阿に譲ると。
カクアシュトリア、謹んでお受けいたします。
Noah and I look over at each other in delight. We turned things around. Kaguya won. We won.
天使創造、リブート。
A while later, okay, there are a few things I liked, there are a lot of things I didn't like. I mean, I already said it before, but definitively, that was pretty bad. Right? The Kaguya and Diablo fight was comical as it is, but the confrontation with, you know, with Kaguya exposing her brother's crimes, while, okay, I understand. How do I say this? It just went too perfect, and then there were a lot of things that didn't really make sense. And maybe it's just me, but you know, her victory felt too definitive for how shaky her, I guess, evidence was. And I don't mean after the king was released, right? After the king came out, it was a lot more definitive, right? But I'm talking about before, right? What was her proof if Klavi didn't switch sides? And I mean, okay, I guess that question can be rectified if they're going to tell me that Kaguya secretly hired Klavi to switch sides, right? Because I wouldn't really have a problem with that, because it's not like she hasn't already done that before, right? So yeah, you know what? Maybe they're gonna tell me that Klavi was hired by Kaguya, and that's why he switched sides. But yeah, a while later, phew, everything ended up going according to plan. Kaguya has led me away from the castle. We're now in town amid the hustle and bustle of it all, so it's safe for me to remove the fox mask. Obviously, I'm still suppressing Diablo's mana to the maximum extent possible.
ええ、すべてあなたのおかげよ。
Only now does she pull out the fox ears. It wouldn't have gone nearly as well without your acting, especially when we were fighting.
それもそうね。じゃあ、私たちの愛と絆の賜物でどう？
You won't hear me complain about that. On that note, should we really be talking about this in the middle of town? In fact, should the future queen of the country really be out on a casual stroll through town, especially with someone who isn't from this town? I glance around, but I don't spot anyone paying Kaguya any specific attention.
雑踏の中の方がかえって安全なのよ。もちろん聞き耳を立てられていなければだけど。
Then we should be fine as long as we don't draw attention to ourselves. I would have thought that people would recognize you though.
街の人たちは私たちの顔なんて遠目でしか知らないはずよ。私だってバルコニーからでは集まった人たちの顔が判別できたことがないし。
That makes sense. When I think of royalty, I do picture them giving their public addresses from up high on a balcony or something. Well, then I guess Kaguya has never appeared in an official capacity as princess close enough for anyone to learn her face.
長い黒髪で耳が生えている魔族の女の子なんて別に珍しくもないし。
Well, I'm glad I don't have to worry.
ええ。あなたもこっちの服に着替えているから、人族と魔族の恋人同士にしか見えないわ。
Ah, okay. See, unlike in Amane's route, where he was kind of forced into this world through the portal, they were actually able to prepare and give him clothes from this world so it doesn't stand out.
こうすれば、なおさら。
Kaguya jumps toward me, grabs my arm, and then flashes me a radiant smile. Fortunately, she's learned how much attention she'll draw by giving my arm a boob job, so she refrains from going all the way there. Really, who'd have guessed? But the feeling of her chest squishing up against me has me smiling in return.
私もなんだか、ようやくほっとできた感じ。本当によく成し遂げたわよね。私たち。
Yeah, the act went according to plan, and what came after couldn't have gone better. Getting one up on the prince and having Kaguya's father declare her as the next queen wasn't the end of it. They called an urgent meeting of His Majesty's government and quickly decided on the next steps to take. First of all, it was decided to publicly announce that Diablo had resurrected, only to be defeated by the second princess, Her Highness Kaguya. You can't say Her Majesty yet. The crown prince was found guilty of plotting for Diablo's return, and was thus excommunicated to the remotest region of Sneeway, where he is to live the rest of his life under strict observation. They only managed to clean house of all those who'd been working with him. They also managed to clean house of all those who'd been working with him. Their crimes ran the whole gamut, from accepting bribes to embezzlement of national funds, and even tax evasion. The worst crime of all, some would say. I don't imagine we'll be seeing the prince anytime soon, to put it mildly. To reinforce the national anti-Diablo policy, it was announced that the king would be immediately abducting the throne for Kaguya the hero. She has the whole of Parliament, or what's left of it, behind her, so I imagine her coronation won't be too far off. Okay, well, they mentioned the one thing I didn't, which was the fact that, you know, Kaguya's brother, while being less popular to the people, did have more power. But, you know, they just mentioned that all of the people working under him have also been arrested for tax evasion and tax fraud and opening up daycares. Never mind. Keeping up the charade of Diablo's revival and subsequent defeat in front of all those leaders of government. Keeping up the charade of Diablo's revival and subsequent defeat in front of all those leaders of government remains of key importance. But as long as I suppress my mana within me to imperceivable levels, the people of this world will be of the assumption that he no longer exists, which in turn means that no one else will try and take Diablo's mana for themselves. The best part is that we no longer need to block travel between our worlds. Kaguya's objective of ensuring there was nothing to fear from people being allowed to traverse our worlds has been achieved. Now we get to think about the future.
そうね。私はいわゆる通い妻になるのかしら。
Well, I don't think he'd be able to, go to your world unless he activated a portal using Diablo's mana, and that would mean that would mean he would have to unsuppress his mana, and that's kind of risky. Right, long distance.
あなたにはまだあっちでするべきことがたくさんあるでしょ？
I guess. Gotta finish school and graduate for one.
あなたがこっちで暮らせるようにするにも、いろいろと準備は必要だし。どうあれ、あなたは少なくとも、当分はあっちで生活した方がいいと思うわ。
Conversely, there are things that demand you stay here. Well, she kind of needs to stay here if she wants to be the queen.
私が一日でも早く即位するに越したことはない以上はね。
I feel like they're putting Riku's need to graduate high school and Kaguya's need to stay because she's the queen on the same level of importance, and like there's a fucking chasm between them.
下手に時間をかけてしまうと、また後継者争いが起こりかねないし。
The prince wasn't your only opponent then.
私が女王になったら、旨味がなくなる立場の者がたくさんいるということよ。
Okay, yeah, there's still people who there are still people who were under the prince, I guess. So there's a lot of people who will still need some convincing, you mean?
まあ、私が女王になった後なら、そういった連中もうまいこと懐柔してみせるけど。
I don't like the look you're giving me when you say that. Then yeah, you really do need to stay here. Controlling ruling a country or graduating high school. Which one is more important? But why do you have to be the one visiting me?
あなたは自力で世界を渡れない以上、他にないでしょ？でも安心して。あなたが寂しくないように、隙を見て頻繁に通うつもりだから。
I mean, okay, there was also that, but I was just thinking of, if he ever learned to be able to do it, he would have to use Diablo's mana, and that would risk people finding out that Diablo didn't actually die. I thought traversing between the worlds was supposed to be difficult, and once you become queen, you'll have even less time.
理由はいくらでもつけられるし、魔法に関しても多分問題はないわ。女王直々の定期異世界調査を政務化して、そのための機関を作ってしまえばいいんだもの。
But only that one other world. I thought you were supposed to avoid mixing up your public and private affairs.
愛するあなたのもとへ通うためなら、どんな努力も厭わない、けなげな女、と言ってほしいわね。とにかく、今までのように、毎日気軽に会うことはできなくなってしまうけど、でも、むしろその方が燃えない？
Kaguya gives me that mischievous smile she always does when she's convinced she's right. And then...
会えない期間があった分、思いは募り、燃え上がるものじゃないかしら。それに、ゲートに取り込み口を作って、スマホの電波がつながるようにもしておくから、あなたはあの部屋で過ごして、私が愛されに来るのを待っていてくれる？
You're still going to be paying rent for the high rise even though you're not going to be living there? She gives me those upturned eyes along with the most precious of smiles. What's a guy to do except smile back and nod? A relationship between two people from different worlds was never going to go smoothly. We're about to embark on the longest distance relationship any person has ever been on. At least since the story of Orihime and Hikaboshi. Actually, it reminds me more of Kagihime returning to the moon. It's kind of funny when you think about it. This was the relationship we were always fated to have. Of course I will. You want me to look over your apartment in your absence?
ええ。むしろ引っ越してきて、好きに使ってくれていて構わないわ。ありがとう、リク。 何の抵抗もなく受け入れてくれて。
Well, this is kind of close to the end of the route that you kind of can't really have any other conflicts. And, there's not really anyone... There isn't any more time to complain. By this point, I couldn't live without you.
もう私もよ。
I feel a giant squish on my arm, as my arm is finally the word I want to use here, wrapped up into a boob job. I can only smile awkwardly in the face of Kaguya's deep gratitude. But then...
そういうわけだから。
Kaguya gives me the mischievous smile and upturned eyes combo one more time.
これからはどうしても会えない期間があるわ。特に私が女王に即位するまでは通い妻をしている余裕もないと思うの。
Yeah, I figured. There's nothing we can do about that.
完全にそう割り切れる？
Do you even need to ask? Of course I'm gonna be lonely. I'll miss you like crazy.
そうよね。そうこなくっちゃ。私もそうよ。だからこそ。ね。次に会えるまでの間、この思いの火を保つために。
Squish, squish, okay. My arm has been taken prisoner by her ample breasts, their softness engulfing me. I know that she can't help herself, much as she knows that I'm going to struggle to keep my cool. She presses herself right up against me, while whispering in my ear.
思いっきり私を。いえ、お互いを貪っておく必要があるんじゃないかしら?
Another of her whispers follows right while my ears are still tingling.
私は今、猛烈にあなたが欲しいわ。あなたはそうじゃない?
She should know the answer to that already. But our relationship wouldn't have come this far if we weren't explicit with each other. Of course I do.
つまり?
I want you so badly right now, Kaguya.
ありがとう。嬉しい。
She wraps my arm right into her cleavage before starting to pull me the other way.
じゃあ、城に戻りましょう。
Oh, is it okay to bring me back with you?
そろそろ織江が支度を整え終えてくれているはずだもの。
Don't worry, she'll be watching.
私の月の者たちには、将来のために面通ししておきたいし。
You've put a lot of thought into this.
それくらい、あなたが欲しいってことよ。何より、あなたも王城の姫君の寝室で次期女王を抱いてみたくはない?
Yeah, you need a... you need a... How do I say? You need to christen the bedchambers. That delighted smile on her face is inviting me to come and have sex with her in her bedroom, which would mean Kaguya's been planning this from before we left the castle in the first place. The people would be shocked if they knew their queen was this much of a slut.
あなたにだけよ。
I know that. It's only it's one of the things that makes me so obsessed with you.
ええ、わかってるわ。私もあなたに夢中だもの。
Let's prove it, shall we?
今日はね、いっぱいしてあげたいことがあるの。
Okay.
もちろん、してほしいことも。
Now you're getting my hopes up.
私もよ。
We have this open discussion as we retrace our steps back along the road we just came down. A princess, the future queen of this country, is leading me by the arm into her castle to have sex with me. Now that I think about it clearly, this whole scenario is insane. Yeah, the first time she'll be back in her bedroom after however long she's been in your world, she's doing it to fuck. Haha. Kaguya and I found ourselves in many a crazy situation since we started dating. And that's what makes me love her all the more. This moment is like the culmination of all that's come before, and a way of ensuring it continues long into the future. My heart won't stop pounding. Kaguya keeps on leading the way right into the castle. We pass through the stone corridors, up the ornate stairs, and eventually arrive at my room, even more luxurious than a high-rise. Kaguya immediately kneels down on her vast bed and starts patting her plump thighs.
来て。
That smile tells me all I need to know. I dive headfirst toward her thighs. After we've spent enough time together, we both to leave us both satisfied, Kaguya opens the gate to send me back to my original world. You've got this whole opening gate thing down on lock, Kaguya. I was slightly surprised to find the gate opened up onto the balcony of a high-rise apartment.
ええ。だからこの部屋を選んだ。というのもあるの。
Oh, because you figured no one would notice you opening the gate all the way up here on the balcony?
そういうこと。買った時は避難経路を確保しておかないとってだけだったけど、今後は通い妻をすることを考えると、この部屋にしてやっぱり正解だったわ。
Yeah, some escape route it turned out to be, considering you were always targeted outside of it. I'll look after the place while you're gone. I'm taking you up on the offer to move in, by the way. Can I use the rooms however I like?
ええ、空き部屋があるから好きにしてくれて構わないけど。
ん？
寝室は一緒じゃなきゃ嫌よ。
So, that means I have free reign to Aurier's bedroom? Aurier's former bedroom? Fair enough.
そういうわけで。
Kaguya takes a step forward, creating a space between us. She stands up straight and stares into my eyes.
あなたは私に子供を宿す権利を有するただ一人の男性。
Well, that's one way to put it.
私が愛し、人生を共にしたいと欲する唯一の人。
Same here. My mind was made up long ago. I want to give you a child. Even more so because I know you want the same.
私と人生を共にしてくれるのね。
I've always been sharing it with you.
ありがとう。体でたっぷり思い知っているけど。
Oh, you are the one who practically wrung me dry.
だって私はあなただけのドスケベ姫だもの。
Kaguya is the sluttiest character in this game, but she isn't the most degenerate. Right, there is a difference. Yeah, I think it's right that I end up living in your world eventually. It's basically the same as an international marriage anyway, except that it's definitely not. It's not like there's anything stopping me from coming back.
ありがとう。では、改めてもろもろ伝えておくわね。あなたはいずれ、私の、女王の配偶者として、城に迎えることになるわ。王妃。いわゆる、王妃の男性版の称号ね。それを与えるのは難しいかもしれないけど。
I don't care about titles as long as the two of us are together. I mean, I'm just a commoner. I'm not even from your world in the first place.
でも、私の配偶者として恥ずかしくない地位は、きちんと用意しておくわ。
Sure, and I'll finish up with everything I need to do in this world so that I'm ready when the day comes. And so that I'm a fitting husband for you, Kaguya.
頼もしいわ。じゃあ、やっぱり
Kaguya bows deeply to me.
これからもよろしくお願いいたします。
I bow in return. Nor shall my love for you. Our relationship is going to be different from now on. But as long as our feelings remain the same, naturally we find ourselves drawn to into each other's arms, our lips pressed together. A show of our love, as well as a solemn vow.
あなたとのキスはこれからも必ずこうなんでしょうね。愛し合えている実感と喜びに胸が満たされる。
Nothing about that will change. We may be in different worlds, but our love will always connect us.
愛してるわ。
I love you too.
じゃあそろそろ行くわね。
Kaguya pulls away from me, her long dark hair billowing behind her as she steps out onto the balcony.
女王になったらすぐに戻ってくるから待っていてね。浮気しちゃダメよ。
No promises. She opens the gate and floats up into the air. I'm awestruck. Behind the open gate hangs a brilliant full moon. She glistens in its light, her beauty the very picture of Princess Kaguya returning to the moon. But that's not who she is. And this isn't her leaving. Not a chance. I'd wait forever if it were for you.
私もあなただけを思いながらやるべきことをやるわ。少しでも早くあなたの腕の中に戻ってこられるように。
Thanks. But one of these days, we're going to be living together. I swear it.
ええ。そのためにお互い頑張りましょう。その日を待つのではなく作るために。
This isn't goodbye. It's the see you later that will open up the rest of our future. We sure will. Children too.
ええ。約束よ。必ず私をはらませてね。じゃあ、リク。
You'd better get going, Kaguya. We nod at each other and then smile. Our hearts are racing, not only of worry, but out of anticipation for the future. Because we're not here to say goodbye. We're here to ensure our love can continue on. See you soon.
ええ。行ってきます。
It's only the beginning. There you go. In loving memory of Nate xpnddev.dev. Unlucky. Unfortunately, there's no fucking credit, so it just immediately goes into the epilogue. But, you know, of course, just like with any epilogue, I always list my thoughts. Well, it would usually be during the credits, but sometimes I'm not able to do that. As in, whenever the credits are too quiet, as in with the Maro Chocolate, or whenever the credits don't exist, or whenever they're too loud, like with Kakinuke. But I really liked Kaguya's route up until the end. And I already talked about how this was a strong contender for beating Noah's route, and unfortunately, because of that ending, that isn't the case. Alright, sure, the romance between Kaguya and Riku is pretty cute, but it's the same as between Noah and Riku. Alright, so the only way to judge how good of a route this is to see what the other to look at everything else in the route, right? If you take out the romance, what do you have? You have a route that is centered around how Riku, how Kaguya wants Riku to control his mana, and how Kaguya is trying her best to form a connection with Riku in a way that doesn't require them meeting each other at school every day. It's about how Kaguya's brother was trying to steal Diablo's mana, and also how he was trying to succeed the throne by imprisoning the king and killing his sister. And it was about how Kaguya planned to stop her brother by staging a fight between herself and Diablo, and then accusing accusing her brother of all of those things, and somehow being able to get away with all of that. Right? Are you sure no one questioned? No one had any questions about Diablo and Kaguya's fight, or no one had any questions about how would I say? It's hard to explain. You know, no. I mean, okay, I brought it up before, and now I'm blanking on it. And I understand, you know, there were some things in the ending that I did like, right? But it was just the fight. First of all, was too comical for it to not seem staged to the people around them, around Kaguya and Diablo, Riku, and then there was that whole confrontation between Kaguya and her brother, and how Clavi didn't say anything about how, you know, he knows there is a connection between Kaguya and Diablo, right? And I mean, they didn't really say why Clavi never said anything about it, right? So, you know, and then there's the whole fact that, you know, the whole reason they did this plan was, well, I guess it was threefold, right? It was to uh it was to turn her into a hero. It was to dispel the worries of interdimensional travel to this other world, and it was to expose her brother. But that was the real nail in the coffin was when they bring in the king, right? So the last thing, it didn't really do any. So the fight with the fight between Riku and Kaguya didn't really accomplish the third thing. I mean, it elevated her point because now she was perceived as the hero, but the evidence was very fucking choppy. Right? There wasn't actually there actually wasn't anything definitive there. There were two testimonies, right? It's Clavi and the king. And sure, I guess you could say the king's word is good enough. And stuff like that. But I don't know. Summer break has long ended. It's now the middle of September. Either way, I like Kaguya. She has increased in my ranking, but definitely not higher than Noah in terms of character and route. That should do it. I moved out of home and into here at the start of the school semester. At the start of the second semester, with my parents' consent, of course. In retrospect, I'm glad I went through the ordeal of introducing Kaguya to them. Well, yeah, it'd be kind of hard to explain to them why you're moving into this fucking penthouse if they never knew about Kaguya.
一時お国に帰らなきゃいけなくなったけど、こっちの部屋も維持しておきたいってことなら、ちゃんとあんたが責任持って留守を預かりなさい。それがあんたの務めでしょ。
Yeah, thank God I don't have to do your laundry too.
けど確かに通いだと限度はあるわよね。人が住んでない家はすぐに荒れるものだし。なわけで、あんたが家を出るの積極的に許可しましょう。当たり前でしょ。かぐやちゃんの頼みとなれば私も力になってあげたいし、それだけあんたを信頼してもらえてるってことなんだから嬉しい限りじゃない。初の一人暮らしになるけど頑張りなさいよ。
It went far better than I expected. In fact, she practically kicked me out of the house. My mom really has taken a liking to Kaguya, hasn't she? I mean, yeah. Kaguya had the air of a successful person and also royalty, but, you know, she doesn't need to know about that part. In any case, I've been doing a fair bit of housework for a while, so I've adapted quickly to living on my own. I cook, clean, wash up, and just generally look after myself. Yeah, but you don't cook that much. Not today, though. I stand up from the sofa and make my way into the kitchen.
あら。もう少しだから、いい子で待っていて。
Unfortunately, the last CG of this game kind of has to be censored because she's naked with she's naked and only wearing an apron. Kaguya wearing nothing but an apron. Well, there you go. It greets me with a smile while her hands keep on cooking. And now here's the thing, right? I have been using CGs that are only the 18 plus version for thumbnails. Unfortunately, I can't really use it here, even though she is covered in the right places. There is a bit of areola poking out. How do I know this? Well, how do you think I got the thumbnails of the other... How do you think I got the other thumbnails? Her delight and enjoyment show in full force through every last part of her. You're really killing the whole newly married wife look, Kaguya.
そう?昨夜たっぷり愛してもらえて、まだその余韻が残っているからかしら。あとはこの格好?裸エプロンというのよね。
I guess you could call it an outfit. It's just an apron. What do you mean? Yeah, and the sight of you in one is overwhelming in all sorts of ways.
こっちだと、新妻はこの格好をするのが普通なの?
No, it's more of a common dream shared by all men. I get the feeling there aren't many girls out there who'd actually do it for you.
つまり今、すごくグッと来てもらえてるってことね。通い妻としては、これ以上ないくらいの戦果だわ。
Kaguya's now become queen and has started visiting me. Not only does she have her new duties to attend to, but she's also proactively pushing her policy to improve the knowledge of and standing of Diablo. Despite all of that, she's making as much time in her busy schedule as she can to come and see me. Okay, hang on. If she's trying to improve Diablo's if she's trying to improve Diablo's reputation, then what was the point of her fighting quote unquote Diablo? Or the reincarnation of him? Or is she like, the first Diablo was good, I don't know what happened with the second one. Maybe the person who reincarnated into Diablo was evil. Oreo is probably suffering the fallout from this now that she's Kaguya's chief aide and all. Apparently, Oreo is insistent that after everything that's happened, she helps us to the best of our abilities. I hope that means she's watching them. Never mind. And so Kaguya gratefully took her up on that offer. So have I, come to think of it. I'll have to make sure I thank Oreo when I get the chance.
どうかした？
Oh, no, I just feel bad for making you cook. You must be exhausted.
私が作りたいんだから、いいのよ。
And because she's probably a better cook than you.
城だと料理をさせてもらえないけど、こっちだといくらでもできるから楽しいし。それに、嬉しくて幸せで、しょうがないのよ。
Cooking makes you that happy? Well, yeah, she's able to laugh as a housewife when she doesn't.
あなたのために、愛を込めた食事を作ってあげられるのが、よ。
I feel the emotion flooding through me. Her smile and her love moved me, as they always do, but it's more than that. It was the way she said, darling. I've always dreamed of having a wife call me that someday. Unable to hold myself back, I sidle up to her and hug her tightly from behind.
調理中よ。
Well, yeah, this is also a male fantasy. It's your fault for making me love you so much I can't stop myself. I love you, Kaguya. Brushing aside her fragrant black hair with my nose, I plant loving kisses all over her next. While doing so, I hug her even tighter, fully squeezing us together. Her naked apron leaves her back completely exposed, and the squishy feeling of her plump ass is to die for.
もう、そんなことしてもらったら、唇にも欲しくなっちゃうわよ。
Perfect. Turn this way. Kaguya.
リク、もっと、朝から熱烈なんだから。
Kiss.
なんだかこのまま押し倒されてしまいそうだわ。
Because I want to. I push my crotch into her ass. Okay, it
最初から気づいてたわ。固くしてくれていたの。
I understand that this scene was necessary, but you know, if it's gonna lead into a hate scene, you can kind of, you can stop now.
昨夜、もう一滴も出なくなるまで愛してくれたのに、実はまだまだ足りなかったの？
Weren't you the one who told me that distance makes the heart grow fonder? One night could never be enough. I'll never be satisfied as long as I live.
なら私も、ますます足しげく通ってこないとね。
Yeah, you know, for business reasons.
あなたにがっちり、ハラマセックスで種付けしてもらわなきゃいけないし。
You've turned into quite the dirty talker, haven't you?
教えてくれたのはあなただし、喜んでくれるのもあなたよ。新妻としては、好きあらば言ってあげたくもなるわ。
You really are the perfect wife, Kaguya.
あなたこそ、私を愛してくれる力が高すぎると思うけど。
It's still your fault for being so lovable.
朝食、作っちゃうわね。二人で食べて、それからまた、寝室に行きましょう。
See what I mean? You're perfect.
せっかく世界を渡って、あなたの腕の中に戻ってきたんだから。私だって、これでもかというほどに、愛してほしいに決まってるでしょ？
We connected two worlds. We connected two worlds also that our love could stay alive.
ええ。次に通える時まで、 余韻が残っているくらい愛し合わなきゃダメよね。心でも体でも。こうやって何度でも。
I imagine our relationship will continue this way for a while longer. It's the longest distance relationship imaginable after all. Two people born in different worlds who went through the craziest things to reach this point. But it all made our love and our bond even stronger. As long as I have Kaguya by my side, I'm convinced I could do anything. And that conviction is only getting stronger. What world we came from and we were decided to live doesn't matter, because our relationship will always continue on like it has, long into the future. I wouldn't be surprised if our love ends up tearing down the boundaries between our worlds entirely. I'm sure we'll change the world. Yeah, unfortunately, only one side is aware of the other world, especially if our love is allowed to take form. Well, like always, the epilogue doesn't really change my opinion of the route. But she is wearing those fucking J's. But I've somehow made it a habit to wait until the very end to say my ranking. Alright, and I mentioned before already that Kaguya is definitely not below, is definitely not higher than Noah. But she is I'm torn, because I do like Fumika, and if Fumika had a longer route, he would still be third, but because her route, but because he wasn't able to flesh out her character enough, Kaguya is going into third. Listen, it's unfortunate, Fumika, right? It's not up to me to decide. If it was, I would have given you a main character spot, but unfortunately, you have been relegated to teacher position, which means that you are stuck being the side character. But either way, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I did yap way more than I have in most other things, I guess. Right? The only time I yap that much is during mystery visual novels, right? Like a fucking Irosekai or Amazing Grace, where I'm trying to theorize about what's going to happen next. But I hope you enjoyed. If you did, a follow would be appreciated. And, well, if you're watching on YouTube, a subscribe would also be appreciated. And, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, maybe come over to the Twitch. I may not be showing the model off on YouTube, but you'd be able to see it in VODs and on stream, obviously. But either way, we aren't finished. We have one more route to go, and that is Best Girl Kurumi. And I really hope her route is good, because, you know, there has been a level of quality in the main characters, in the main girls' routes, right? But there is still varying quality in those routes, right? Like Amane, Kaguya, and Noah's routes were good, and they were better than the side character routes, but there are still problems in them that can't make them definitively great routes. But either way, with that being said, I guess I should have said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.